Tell me if this is a correct or accurate description of an African millennial. We have changed the world's understanding of Africa from a dark continent to Africa rising through blogging and social media. Hashtag someone tell CNN. We're all tech savvy, and we're all founders of a tech startup that starts with the initials M, like M-Kopa or M-Pesa. Now, is that an accurate description of an African millennial? Hold on to that. Now, I'd like to get a feel of who's in the room. Those are the generations. We have 4 generations. Hopefully, we have 4 generations represented here. Or these are the generations that we are looking at in terms of population ages as well as consumer demographics. So we have the Generation Z that are the latest generation. Those are either between 15 to 20 years, or also called the I generation. Then we have the Millennials. Do we have other Millennials apart from myself in the room? By a show of hands. Wow, we are the minority. All right, do we have any Generation X? Xers in the room? Ah, awesome. And do we have the baby boomers? Baby boomers? Awesome. Awesome. And do we have any silent generation? Anyone above the age of 65 years old? The silent generation. Okay. I guess they're silent. All right. So I will begin by a quote from, I will begin this conversation by a quote from a gentleman called Mike Higley. He is the Vice President of Operations for FedEx. And the reason why I picked this quote is because it really captures what I will be speaking on today. And this is what he had to say, that in Africa, the demographic of millennials has surpassed that of baby boomers. And so for any business that is operating in the African continent, it is important for you to understand the unique challenges, the opportunities, as well as the buying behavior of the millennial consumer in order to build meaningful relationships that give this consumer segment the service, the level of service that they demand. And that basically wraps up, captures everything that I will be talking about in my presentation today. Now, before I get to my next slide, there are a lot of assumptions and a lot of understandings that have been there about millennials as a generation and as a consumer segment. And I'd like to hear some views about millennials. Some views about millennials, what you feel about millennials. Yeah, we've had terms like they are lazy, they are entitled, they are narcissistic, and they're killing every industry, including the hospitality industry. Have you heard of that? Yeah? So what we are seeing is that there has been an oversimplification of the understanding of millennials. And this oversimplification of the understanding of millennials has made its way to boardrooms, and we have business strategies and marketing strategies being built over these assumptions, especially about millennials in this continent. Now, one of the main things that has been associated with millennials is their narcissistic nature. And what we see from this is that this is not the only generation to be described as narcissistic. So that is basically being in awe of your own awesomeness. And we see this cutting across all other generations, from the baby boomers to Generation X to Generation Z. We see that cutting across those previous generations. But there is something unique about the millennials as a demographic and as well as a consumer segment. And what I will be dwelling on are the myths that we have seen, as well as giving you a reality check. So one of the defining traits about millennials globally, before I come specifically to the African continent, is their their ease of use of technology. This is a generation that has grown up with digital communications and the internet. And so what we have seen is their use of technology has been much bigger much bigger than previous generations, and especially when it comes to creation of content online. Now, So are there similarities and are there differences between millennials in the African continent and those in Asia, Americas, or Europe? I'll look at some of them. And this is the question that last year, at the beginning of last year at GeoPoll, we asked ourselves, are millennials in the continent any different from millennials elsewhere? Are they all the same? Do they all behave the same? As a consumer segment, do they all have the same preferences? And we did a series of studies around those topics that you're seeing there, from their media consumption to personal finance, their thoughts on gambling, their spending habits, their thoughts on internet security, including civic participation. And what I will be sharing with you are some of the findings from these studies that we conducted, as well as other studies that have been conducted by other research agencies on this demographic. Now, one of the myths has been that millennials are the majority and that they are young. Now, looking at statistics from the United Nations as well as the African Development Bank, and as you can see, these are revised estimates from the United Nations last year, we see that Africa's population of 1.2 billion, which makes up approximately 17% of the world's population, those aged 15 years and below make up 41% of the population. Those aged 19 years and below make up 51%. What do you notice? That millennials, those aged between 20 to about 37 years old, make up less than 30%. So what does this tell us? That Generation Z, that is the generation after millennials, that is coming after millennials as a consumer segment, they are the majority and they are younger than millennials. Now, another myth that is partly reality, part myth, is that all millennials are mobile and that they're connected. These are the latest statistics from GSMA. And what we see is that the number of unique mobile subscribers, as well as the level of mobile usage penetration in Africa, is currently at 46 against the global penetration rate of 63%. So what does this tell us? That although the millennials fall in this 46%, and they're the majority in that, not all millennials are mobile or connected. Again, we look at the statistics on internet connection and level of internet penetration. It is at 29%. So what does this mean to us as brands? That even when we are targeting this consumer segment, that it's good to have an integrated communications approach in the way that we target this demographic. Now, the other myth has been that they are all on social media. Now, these are statistics from last year, and as you can see, out of a population of 1.2 billion, the level of internet penetration, as I mentioned, is 29%. The number of active social media users is at 14%. Now, the reality, however, is that for the millennials that are using their phones to get, for the millennials that are on the internet, they are mobile first. And compared to previous generations, they have higher mobile usage. They have higher mobile usage, and their use of the mobile phone is beyond communication. They have found diverse ways in which to use their mobile phone, such that it has become integral to their lives beyond just making a call or receiving a message. Now, when we look at social media as a source of news and information, from this survey that we conducted last year, you see that social media has become the primary source of news and information for the millennial demographic. This is over and above TV, radio, or newspapers. As you can see, the very last bar there is newspapers. So what does this mean, again, to us as a hospitality industry when we're looking at targeting this demographic? Do we pull an ad, do we put an ad in the newspaper as we are targeting this demographic? Or where should our focus be? And I'll dwell on that briefly in a little while. So now we've looked at the population. I will now be zeroing in on the African millennial consumer, the one who has the buying power. And I will be building a profile, looking at the challenges that brands and organizations that are having in targeting this demographic, as well as the opportunities that are out there, specifically for the hospitality industry. Now, this is the profile of a millennial consumer. They have shifting preferences. They have shifting preferences in what they view as leisure, entertainment, the way they go about banking, the way they go about everything that they do in life. There's a shift in preferences. They have a disruptive mindset. And I think we've seen that in various aspects of our lives. In most industries, we've seen that. They're social online. Social in the sense of usage, consumption of news and information, as well as generation of content. Always on their mobile phone. They're better educated compared to previous generations. They are more self-assured. They're more self-assured in their identity as millennials, as Africans, and they are extremely, extremely image conscious. And this is underlined by what millennials have been known for as the selfie generation. And so for them to look good, we will see in the subsequent slide that they spend quite a considerable amount of money, money on looking good. And they're highly opinionated. A millennial will tell you what they think even when you've not asked for their opinion. And they'll do that via social media. And we've seen that. And I don't know if some of you have had the experience where a millennial has stayed at one of your hotels, and instead of calling the reception to complain, maybe I don't have fresh towels, they will tweet about it. Any of you have gone through that experience? Yes, that is a millennial for you. So when we look at the expenditure and how they use their money, from this survey that we ran in 5 African countries, we see that personal care, and this reinforces what I talked about, being extremely image conscious. Personal care, a lot of expenditure goes towards that, then investment, entertainment, then gambling. Now that we've built a profile of this millennial consumer, how do we, as the hospitality industry, better engage and target this consumer segment? Now, these are the four ways in which, based on our own research, as well as in my background as a digital marketer, these are the effective ways that you can do that. Have a mobile-first approach. And this is right from the information that is available for this consumer segment to make a buying decision. How they go about booking. Are they able to book using their mobile phone? Are they able to place a booking? Are they able to pay? Do you have an integrated payment solution that they can actually pay from their mobile phone, or they need to go to a laptop or call or actually go to the bank to deposit, deposit money? Having a digital end communication strategy. And this is basically having a game plan that gives you a presence in which social media channels or which online platforms do you decide to be on. Should you be on LinkedIn? Should you be on Facebook? Should you be on Instagram? That is what the strategy advises you on. Engagement. The strategy also enables you come up with a way of engaging this segment, as well as relevance, creating that relevance on them deciding, should I follow them on their Twitter account, or should I follow you on your Instagram account? Creating a personalized experience. Now, this will happen through finding out about them, and as I said, they're highly opinionated. We share a lot of aspects of our lives, and so it is very easy to know what millennials like through either consumer research or big data analysis. Then finally, co-creation. Is your offering allowing them to express themselves over mass market alternatives? The next slide that I'll be sharing, and this is a disclaimer, is going to look at one of the biggest disruptors in the hospitality industry. And what I will be looking at is what are some of the ways in which this particular disruptor has created relevance and has resonated with the millennials in the continent. Now, that photo that you're looking at there, that is accommodation listing. That is an accommodation listing right here in Kenya. Yes, it's a bus, but inside that bus is a hotel room with all the amenities. And this is a listing right here in Kenya in a place called Karen. And this is one of the most highly rated accommodations in Kenya. It's very expensive. I think it goes for about, I think it's about $180 per night stay. And one of the ways, I look at various ways in which this disruptor has resonated very well with African millennials. One, it has set itself up as an alternative for those seeking a different travel experience. Cocreation. A co-creation that translates to economic empowerment to those putting up listings on this disruptor's website. It makes sense in terms of finances to them. The power of social media. What we are seeing here is when two disruptors meet. We have a disruptive company coming together with a demographic that is disruptive in nature. The impact of influencer marketing. Now, this is something that I will talk about briefly. And also, finally, peer review through consumer-generated content. That this is a company that has met a demographic that loves to generate content online, and through peer review, it has been able to grow its listings. So, is it possible to replicate this? Is it possible for your brand to replicate this? I'll tell you a bit of a startup that started here, that was founded by two Kenyans, and it's called TurnUp. Now, TurnUp is a startup in the hospitality industry. It's actually a travel agency, a digital-first and influencer tour operator. And what they did is that they started what is called a Nairobi Instagram tour and club crawl experience. So basically what they did is that they brought together photographers who have a lot of influence on social media. They have a huge following. And what they did is that they took them on a tour of Nairobi, the known places in Nairobi. And that right there, that photo appearing there, is a photo taken above KICC. And what they have done is they are able to create journeying, exploring, and sharing of experiences through influencer marketing. I'd like you to meet Chiamaka. Do we have any Nigerians in the house? Yeah. So Chiamaka started out as a travel blogger. And this was something that she did as a hobby. She had a day job. And so because she loves traveling, she would write about her experiences touring Nigeria. And eventually she quit her day job because she was making enough money. And she started a travel agency. And now, because of her influence on social media through her blogging platform, she's now able to partner with hotels in Nigeria to create experiences for the millennial segment. And as you can see from this screen grab that I made of her Instagram page, she is currently carrying out a campaign with one of the resorts in Nigeria for a weekend getaway. Now, as I come to the end of my presentation, earlier on I mentioned that millennials are not the majority and they're not the youngest. We have another generation coming in. And if we thought millennials have been disruptive, then we've not seen anything yet, because Generation Z are the next disruptors. Thank you very much.